So welcome to CxXchange Success Hour. I'm super excited about this topic and our co-lead today. It is on how to build strategic and responsive support teams. And Marilyn Lin is helping to lead this topic here. We happen to meet over a dinner for CS leaders in Los Angeles, even though she's usually in San Francisco. And we got started talking about this. And I'm like, you have to come to CxXchange Success Hour. We have to talk about this topic. So I'm super excited that she's here. And Marilyn, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself so everyone can get to know you too?
Sounds great. Hi. Thanks, Jan. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here today to meet the CxXchange community. Like Jan said, we just met last month at an event, and I just want to give Fred Tsai a quick shout out for introducing us. That was really wonderful opportunity for me to meet some CS leaders while I was spending the summer in Southern California. So for me to be here today, I'm really passionate about all things related to strategic support and proactive responsive support teams. And I'm here to share my thought leadership around this area. I feel that I'm on a quest to help elevate and up-level the support discipline. I didn't come through the traditional path, career path of support leadership. I actually started out my career that spans over 2 decades in IT audit, of all places, and then moved into program management, product management, spent some time in strategy and operations for renewals and support, and also more leadership roles, including chief of staff to the support leadership team at Salesforce, and eventually becoming a VP of global technical support for the MuleSoft team, as well as more recently at Delphix. And one particular quote I like to share is that I always feel there is such a treasure trove of insights that come from support cases. And I noticed, I don't know if Sean Stifler is in the audience today, but I noticed that he made a comment to Jan's post promoting this event, and he called it out as well, that support has a treasure trove of insights. And Cynthia and Kathy also called it a gold mine. I think there's just such an untapped grouping of information here that can just be the secret sauce or secret weapon for organizations to really take in those insights and fold it into other parts of the business to help drive impact and the bottom line. So today's topic is just near and dear to me, and I'm so happy to be here to share more about it.
Awesome. All right. So with that said, then let's dig in. So, and I think that's something that oftentimes when people think of support, there's sort of like that saying that, CSMs are proactive and support is reactive. But I kind of reject that. And that's how we got started talking, Marilyn and I, because, I think that there's just a lot of strategic information that you can find. And the more you approach it with that in mind, there's so much you can do with the data there. So first, we thought it'd be important, though, if somehow you had 2 proactive approaches, well, how are they different then? And so we wanted to kind of drive home the difference between customer success and customer support, right? And so customer success is really about driving the revenue, renewals, expansion, upsell opportunities. So when you're looking at adoption, when you're looking at optimization, it's with that in mind. And support is definitely looking at, how to be responsive, most certainly, because, you need to have some means of helping your customers when they can't use the product for whatever reason, right? So this is where we were sort of getting into product stability and how then that, when you build that trust in how they're able to use your product, that is then also really important for long-term retention. What kinds of things did you want to add in terms of thoughts on this, Marilyn?
Yeah, so often support is seen as the brick fix reactive organization, but just making, changes in transforming the organization to look at it in a more holistic way of being strategic and how it plugs into the rest of the organization, kind of taking a step back and looking at the organization where they can actually feed into other parts of the company, not just working with CS or product and engineering, but it's also other components to the customer lifecycle and the go-to-market strategy, working with sales and marketing, for example, training and onboarding as other areas, and finding ways to collaborate more closely and learning and understanding the initiatives that other groups are driving and how to build up those synergies. I took this quote from a Michelin-starred chef, Vikas Khanna. He said that it takes months to find a customer and only seconds to lose one. It's kind of akin to this notion that sales and marketing spends a lot of time and dollars, right? Going out there, farming and getting customers to sign. And once onboarded, it's so critical to give that strong experience and leaving strong impression to the customer, especially with recurring revenue, and driving those opportunities to cross-sell and upsell further as well with the clients. And I think that's similar in the restaurant business. The food obviously has to be good. It doesn't always have to be Michelin-starred quality, but you tend to remember a great dining experience based on how you were treated at the restaurant, not just the food itself, but it's also how you have this, wonderful time and experience at the restaurant, and in the way that you remember and think about that experience and wanting to go back and enjoy another meal there too.
Right. So then what do we really mean then by strategic and responsive support teams? And, this is where we wanted to sort of get into the differentiation of just purely reactive to how then support becomes part of a strategic play in your organization. And so it's part of it is, thinking about the customer experience, right? But then also, if you're looking at, say, in the early stages of a product or a startup, they can also be sort of that lifeblood of hearing about where there are challenges for the customers or what they're actually looking for, look at how they want to use the product. And if then your support team is also trained to sort of dig in a little deeper, so not just solve the problem, close the ticket, but if also what they're trying to do is understand, well, what's the business impact? Why are you trying to do this? And then they're able to collect this information is a really valuable type of feedback that product and engineering can learn from it. So I think that's one of the key things. What other things do you want to add in on this slide, Marilyn?
In my intro, I mentioned that customer support is a treasure trove of insights that feed into other parts of the organization. It's taking a look at not just the fact that you've got high case volumes and lots of tickets to solve and opening bugs with product and engineering to fix those issues, but taking a step back and actually analyzing that information, finding where those top pain points are for customers, where there's potential opportunities to build other new product lines or new functionality and features to address common issues that are coming up. It's not always about fixing existing products and issues, but it's looking ahead and being part of that innovative team as well, contributing to the product roadmap, I think is very key in the way that support can be more strategic and not be that reactive group and team. Partnering with, like I mentioned, not just product and engineering or CS, but in more upstream with the go-to-market side of things, providing insights into what's working, what's not working, what they're seeing with those interactions that are coming through the case queue, identifying what I call frequent flyers. So understanding who are the top customer accounts or the top user reaching out and logging lots of tickets with support, and understanding what is the gap there. Is it that they've been oversold, features and functionalities that really they aren't able to fully take advantage of? Or is it a training and enablement gap? Maybe they haven't spent the time going through training materials or training courses that you've provided, and learning and understanding those gaps and areas and working with the right teams to deliver on closing those gaps, I think is important as well. It's not always about escalating bugs and calling out product gaps to product and engineering.
I wanted to highlight this that's in the resources, but you did some specific things because you've worked in both product and then, and actually, I guess product first and then over in support, really, right? And so, which is kind of the opposite. A lot of times people go from support over to product, but you went from product to support. And because of that lens, what were some of the key things that you did that might be a little different than some other support leaders? Because, one thing that we talked about that I thought was really interesting is the key thing that's usually done by, in terms of how support leaders organize support teams is they'll, especially when they're thinking of their teams as reactive, is they'll look at how many tickets did we process? Did we reduce the number of tickets? And, how quickly did we resolve them, right? Mm-hmm. But then what happens a lot, especially I know as a customer, then I end up being like, hey, you just closed my ticket. That's not resolved at all, right? And then there's even times when I want to give a lot of feedback and they're like, yeah, but did we solve your problem? I'm like, do you want my feedback at all? Do you care? Right. So what kinds of things did you do coming from that product lens when you were in support?
That's exactly right. So a lot of times within support, there's internal KPIs that the team is measuring against, right? And it's very internal. Like you talked about resolution rates and the backlog volumes, et cetera. But it's more internal looking and not placing the customer experience at the forefront of it. And so the way kind of to turn this around is, for example, you describe teams just wanting to close down the ticket. And I've seen organizations implementing processes, for example, like a 3-strike rule, where they reach out to the customer 3 times. And on the 3rd try, if there's no response, they close out the ticket. For the customer, it could be they might have been on vacation, they have other fires to deal with, and they haven't been able to respond back to the case. And one of two things end up happening. They have to reopen it and maybe re-explain the issue, or worse, they have to relog the ticket all over again. And from that customer experience, it's this additional added effort that they have to go through, and it's frustrating. It's more time consuming, and they still don't have their issue resolved. It's looking at ways to make sure you're placing the customer experience in the center of all the decisions that you're making related to process changes and enhancements, and understanding how do I better serve the customer, and focusing on understanding those pain points and gaps and addressing and bubbling up those common issues, and providing that information to engineering and product so that they can do something about it. So some examples of ways that I partnered with cross-functional teams is on the next slide.
Let me
describe some examples.
I think there was some sort of issue with the slide, maybe. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes, the slide after this, yes. So talking about eliminating those siloed behaviors, I have some examples here of what I've done in the past in terms of initiatives and programs. So working with product and engineering, knowing what I know now, if I was to be a product manager all over again, I would definitely partner and listen more closely with my support counterparts. And so what I did on the support side, we created a joint product and customer support reviews program when I was at MuleSoft. And I had direct team members on my team and the leadership side partner with their counterparts in product engineering, documentation team, training and enablement so that we can surface and bubble up on a regular basis on some of those common case issues that we're seeing. We showcase the trends, identify these metrics, and share these insights with the group so that they can look into it and better at an aggregate look at the issues instead of just lobbing one bug after another over to the team and having them figure out and decipher how to prioritize those issues. We provide more details behind them by grouping, here are the customers that we're seeing reporting these issues. These are those top accounts that the company cares about that have been reporting these areas of issues and concerns as well, so that they have better ways to identify and prioritize those fixes. So that's an example. Building in customer empathy as well as empathy for support colleagues. We created a ride-along program where product and engineering folks on a quarterly basis would sit in on support calls. And through that program, they quickly identified how customers are actually using the product in ways that they weren't even imagining before. And just having more of that real-time exposure to the end users using their product really helped, again, with their changing their way of thinking and prioritizing their product roadmap, and making sure that we bubble up and share and provide feedback with new products, especially going into market. What we're quickly hearing and seeing, we make sure we have a feedback loop to fold that into the product and engineering team so that they can be more responsive to tweaking their product roadmap in those early stages. And
Pam, you put a question in the chat. Do you want me to read it, or you want to come off mute?
I'll read it. Is there a regular cadence for your meetings, your review meetings?
Yeah, so we work together with the team. So we started out saying that we wanted to do this on a quarterly basis. And then from there, it really is up to the group and team working together to determine what that ongoing cadence looks like. It could be every month, every 6 weeks. It really depends on how they want to work and collaborate together. Sometimes if it's too often, then they might not feel like they're seeing progress, because it does take time, right, to go and implement those code changes. It really just ends up depending on the team. And I provide more of that autonomy for groups to decide for themselves.
And what about, so Jay Sanchez, you're here, right? You're just not on my first page, I think. Oh, no, there you are. So you're saying in the chat that you give your team 48 hours for the customer to respond with 2 additional check-ins. So basically every 2 days you're checking in over the course of like 6 days. Is that kind of the way you approach it?
And I just also want to note, like, we do these check-ins just to make sure that that they still need help. And if at any point in these check-ins they're just not responsive, like, we'll try alternate methods of getting in touch with them. Basically, like, just because somebody didn't respond for 6 days doesn't mean they don't still need our help. We just try to think creatively on, like, how else could we help you? Probably are busy. So the idea of the check-in is we don't want to keep the ticket open because it does affect our metrics and it eats up our time, but that doesn't mean the issue is resolved. So we'll just take a different approach.
Mm-hmm.
And so then are you finding that you have to reopen tickets, or you just try to?
No.
Okay. But so you're because you're making the information available in other places, maybe they find it in other ways?
Yeah, well, what we do, we check every month across the board, but also weekly. We have team meetings where we talk about what are the topics that our customers are reaching out about. Why are they reaching out? It's very rare that we have a customer reopen a ticket, and so we basically take what the customers are reaching out about, how frequently, and what's the level of complexity of the issue. And we build articles. We use our AI so like they can get that information from our AI without having to wait for a person. Or we pass the feedback over to our product and engineering team of like, hey, this thing is really complicated. Our customers are not doing well with it, and it's eating up our support time. Let's fix it.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. That's great. Definitely, looking into those trends and identifying areas to surface and bubble up and working closely with cross-functional teams. My example was more of situations where the case backlog has just gotten out of control, and having a process in place just to close tickets to drive down, the metrics is not the right approach.
Right. And so I know there's a lot of other CS leaders and folks who manage support teams here in the group. Were there any thoughts you have as we're going through this? Because we're about to go to breakout groups, but I'd love to just, if you want to weigh in, if you have questions or thoughts. Jennifer, I see you come on screen.
Yeah, I was going to say that in terms of being able to build the proactive from the reactive, I've had the opportunity to take some pieces in support to the next level, such that with one of the last solutions that I worked with, my experience directly in support led to building out a separate onboarding program for external support and IT teams that looked very different from the rest of the end users because on how they supported the product. And then it really was geared towards their success metrics, which were different, which were around on ticket time to completion, and also looked at a new metric that I discovered recently, but I knew it before, but didn't have a term, which is ticket cost. So looking at ticket cost. So this is one I got from my friend Hamish McKay, who runs order editing. And it's basically taking the overhead that you have on a monthly basis within your support CX team, and then taking the volume of tickets that you are addressing and dividing. So that you can come up with, your average ticket. And this means all touches on that, but your average ticket, what is it costing?
Right. Exactly. And that's something actually too, in course that I'm about to offer. Part of the things you can look at is what your margins are, right? Because basically support and onboarding are in COGS. And so you need to understand there's certain types of tickets that maybe only take, whatever, an hour of time, let's call it, versus others that are escalated higher and, tier 2, tier 3 tickets that maybe take more effort, more time. And so depending upon how you tier your tickets, how much time you want to ascribe to it, you can then take a look at what your cost per ticket is. I think it's still important to then use that as a way of, so if we fixed this issue in the product, then we would be able to avoid this cost, as opposed to if we just didn't help our customers, we wouldn't spend money on helping them and we're done, right?
Jennifer, thank you for bringing this up because this reminded me of one of the things Jan and I talked about when we were prepping for this call. One of the ways to tie this and making, the insights from support meaningful is doing that cost per case analysis and understanding what that means. And then shooting it back to here's the, buckets of cases that we're seeing coming from top customers, for example, and this equates to X dollars, right? And ARR and the renewal cycle, and assigning dollars is kind of that universal language that everyone clearly understands, right? It's much easier to share and talk through. And so that's, some of the ways that I've done to push through some of these example initiatives and programs is to tie it back to dollars, to tie it back also to identify, like I mentioned, those frequent flyer accounts. And is it really worth serving if they're costing us a lot in terms of supporting them? And again, maybe it ties back to just the implementation itself, or it's training and onboarding that needs to be addressed, but needing to have those data points to just make sure that everyone will look at it in kind of that apples to apples way.
Yeah, Marilyn, you make a really good point. Up until now, well, even now, so much of post-sale is thought of in terms of being cost centers rather than in revenue generation.
Mhm.
And I think that there are probably a lot of products in the marketplace that are going to start paying the price for that.
Mhm.
And in particular, when you're talking about support, it's necessary. Like, you can't let that go completely unanswered. I suppose you could, but most people won't. But it could be that you cut it to the bone.
Yep.
So anytime that you can prove that it is revenue generation, whether that's in additional revenue or in cost savings, that is getting you a better seat at the table. And it's also allowing you to argue for staffing appropriately.
Yep.
And also really benefiting the customers in terms of their experience with your brand as a SaaS brand.
Exactly. One thing I know we want to
just a
transition
second. Why don't we go to Kathy and then the breakout groups if we can, just because we're kind of getting over now. Is that all right? Sorry.
Okay.
Kathy, what was your question?
I just comment both on the proactivity and the cost savings, involving support with other teams like the product team or the CS team can be really important to get them thinking in terms of proactive actions. But it's also, support is the only team that I can think of that has direct experience with how the customer uses the product. And that is so important for everyone else to know. And it also elevates their standing with other teams when they can say, you're planning this expensive feature that you can read in a mirror in Chinese, but the customer just wants to read it on a screen in English. So we can save this much money if you just do that. They just want this. There's a lot of customers things that instead of wanting like bells and whistles, they just want,
that's right.
we could do this. And they're the voice of, I don't want to say the voice of reason, but the voice of the customer to product.
And that's exactly right, because the end users may not be the ones who are paying, writing the paycheck, right, to go and spend the money on the tool or the service. And it's the ones who have to live it and breathe it every single day, running into issues with the product gaps that really need to, spend time and pay attention to that feedback. And again, folding it back into the organization. I know we want to move into breakout, but just one really quick thing I want to make sure I call out.
Just while you say that, just everyone make a note of the questions. I'm about to open the breakout rooms and also make certain you download the slides and the breakout notes. Okay. Yes. What were you going to say?
One quick area, if you haven't already, looking into AI and really tapping into leveraging AI to
that's right.
Run through your cases, right?
Yeah.
Like identifying those trends and common areas, and then also leveraging it to help your support team be proactive. Where are there potential issues that are going to get escalated and that you can actually get in front of? Are there attrition risks that you can have, patterns that you can identify through just historical case data from that account or similar accounts, and then be able to share that information as timely, as real time as possible, right? Like integrating back to systems that the CS team is using, so that, again, just across the company, there's visibility into a lot of these insights that really help.
It's so true. We haven't even dug into that at all in terms of AI and all the ways you can use AI to be more efficient, get more insights, all of the ways. Yeah, that's a really great point. Okay, so I just opened up the rooms. I made them a little smaller. So we should be able to come back in 15 minutes. So Yeah, go ahead. If you see the rooms, go ahead and head over.
Okay, there you go. I see it light up.
I
So
wish
yes.
we taught all of that. We were talking about so many great things.
So it was Support Logic, and then there was another company called Involve AI, which is no longer in business, but Involve AI went and got text from everywhere, and made digital health. And I have the feeling, I haven't seen it, but I have the feeling that what is it called? With the thing that Gainsight just bought sounds like it's like that. But
Yeah.
it's
Well, they do take all of the data across all the different things. They weren't focusing specifically on support.
no. Involve was everything.
Oh, okay.
Support Logic is only support
cases.
Okay.
And I'm just saying that I think whatever it's called, sounds like it's like Involve, where it's getting everything. But it's taking AI and it's taking conversation and turning it, from what I understand, turning it into metrics, health metrics.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And right before everyone rejoined the larger group, I was talking about how it's been nice to see over the last 6 to 8 months that there's been more startups focusing on the support experience and building out tools and applications in that area, and in different ways. So it's going through the case data, it's going through knowledge bases and content management spaces and pulling in the right information so that you can provide that Gen AI level of resolution or knowledge article building. Just more recently, talking beyond writing documentation and other ways to help support customers from that self-service side of things, right? Because I like to say the best case is when there's no case, when customers can figure out the resolution, they don't need to log a ticket. It's same for myself as a consumer, right? If I run into an issue, I like to Google and figure out how to solve it. I don't want to have to go and log a ticket and talk to somebody. So those are just other areas and
we were
ways to look
saying
into as well.
Marilyn, is that
sometimes
we're so good at researching it ourselves that we don't. When we want someone, we really want someone because
Exactly.
we've already exceeded all of those standard resources.
That's right. And then for support reps too, they want to go and solve those tricky technical issues, not the easy, low-hanging fruit, busy work, right? And so how do we kind of make sure that those high volume cases where it's just busy work, we let AI go and solve it and leave the really technical, challenging ones for the team members to go figure
And
it out.
you do what type of AI you use in your chat for your chatbot is really important. I've had some experiences where the chatbot was better than the human, and I've had other experiences where it was pointless to talk to the chatbot. And so that's just something to keep in mind too. There's some things in the chat, but first, Kathy, you had your hand up. You're on mute.
Okay, I'm thinking about the relationship between the onboarding process and support and how you really want to get the onboarding, the training piece right, or you're going to have a flood in support. And do those teams talk to each other, or do they interface at all to make sure what's being trained is trained the right way? Or I hadn't really thought it through that far,
that's
but
Christine and me, and we were talking about it. We definitely have to be BFFs.
Yeah. So if you have your support organization set up, I think the leader or head of the support team should be the ones helping drive those conversations and strategy. Again, leveraging the information that you get from the cases and bringing that back to the table of identifying, the areas that need better training and enablement and where those gaps are. I have an example with a customer situation where they were leveraging consultants with their implementation. And then support was getting escalations through the CS organization saying that cases weren't getting resolved and it was taking too long. So I dove in to look at those cases and identify that the client had brought on these new consultants, and we checked with training enablement to see if they've actually taken the basic training related to our product. And lo and behold, none of them did. And so then that was a reason why we were getting high case volumes from them. Issues that they were raising were things that we knew we had knowledge articles or training behind that they weren't consuming, right? And we brought that back to the customers because, of course, on the customer side, it escalated up their management chain and then over to our management chain. And when we were able to present that data to show none of these individuals had taken any of the basic training and enablement from our side, this is more of an issue from their end versus our support team not, addressing or resolving their cases fast enough.
Well, but also you can then make the case to your customers that this is actually going to serve you better if you do this training up front, as opposed to every time you go to do something, you have to call support kind of thing. And taking that half hour of training upfront versus,
I don't know why it's set up like that. I mean, training is optional. Like, training didn't used to be optional. It used to be required for.
I think it just varies. I don't think it's always optional. I don't think it's always required. I think it depends too on your product, your customer base, variety of things, right? So,
Accessibility.
I wanted to just check in, Jay, you have a lot of things you're sharing over in the chat, and I'm curious about kind of all of it. So if you want to maybe share some of the things you were saying.
Yeah. Specifically speaking for AI, our team uses Intercom. Intercom has FinAI and FinAI Copilot. So FinAI is customer facing. FinAI Copilot is specifically the Copilot for support. And it references like all the internal articles and stuff. It also can be shared like across platforms. So like it'll take PDFs. If you have Guru, it'll also read off of Guru. So there's a lot that can be done here. I have a love-hate relationship with it.
You said something about needing to have clean data. Is that because of changes on your side or changes on the product side? The Intercom? Both. And one of my struggles is this is what I'm hopefully trying to address with Intercom directly. But like one of our issues was that Intercom didn't have an internal knowledge hub available. That was not a feature that existed. When they launched the FinAI Copilot, it was still not a feature that existed. We created different help centers, and one of the help centers was internal, one of them was customer facing. And then randomly we log in one day and now there's a knowledge center and a help center. And the knowledge center is internal, the help center is not. So I had to, we have over 400 different articles in our help center that now we have to migrate like half of them over to our knowledge hub. And that's not even counting what we are trying to migrate from Guru over to Intercom to reduce how much clicking we need to do around. Thus the love-hate. Got it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And
Got it.
It's a hit or miss with getting help there.
One last thing before we head out, because we're a few minutes over, and really appreciate for the folks who are sticking around. But I see, Jennifer, you mentioned Sienna AI and Swift CX tools. And then also, I think there was a conversation where you're talking about the relationship to digital CS. So I don't know who wants to chat about that between Christine, Pam, and you, but if anybody wants to share that insight.
I'll let Christine share what she was sharing in the group. My comment on it is that like it basically is like if you're going, I don't know what to put into my digital CS. I don't know where to get started with my program. I have all of these users and I have all of these accounts, and I need to make sure that they feel that they are enabled and capable, and that they not only are utilizing, but they're increasing their usage. Christine, take it away.
And that's when we talked about the leveraging of customer education and what happens through support to identify the gaps that we have in training opportunities and the access points for the methodologies. Again, kind of dividing things up on whether it's enterprise or SMB and anything kind of in between, where we can really focus on multiple modalities and a choice to opt in or opt out of digitizing your experience. Where when you're SMB, the options are not necessarily as wide open as they can be with the enterprise. So we were just leveraging the ability that Success can use, and anybody else on the post-sales side of the equation can use the information that support provides to get at tons and tons of information about the way people are using the tools. So
Great. No, really helpful. Okay. All right. Well, I think we've discussed everything that was in the chat in our breakout groups. I hope you were able to share some of that in the breakout notes as well. And I just want to say thank you one more time to Marilyn for this leading us off on such a great discussion and all of the contributions that each of you had this evening. Thank you so much. And next week, we're going to be bringing together CS leaders who are going to be talking through how they do their interview and hiring process. I think that's going to be helpful for anybody who's sort of kicking the tires on their process, as well as insights for any job searchers who are trying to understand just what, what are folks looking for when they do that? So it can be useful to lots of folks. Then September 3rd, we're going to be hearing from folks who got the job and some of the insights that they have to share. And then September 10th, we have more topics coming, updates all the time over on our website. You can find it all at CxXchange.com. All right. Awesome. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you for having me. This is a lot of fun.
All right. Take care.
See you, everyone.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Success Hour, formerly known as CS Office Hours. We regularly put out new content, so to be the first to know, like this episode, tap that notification bell, hit that subscribe button, and we look forward to seeing you soon.